right. Hello, everyone. My name is Laura Goulding, and I'm the Manager of Communications with 4-H Ontario. And today I'm excited to welcome you to the second of our two-part Facebook Live series. Our goal today is to provide our volunteers with the tools and tips to help 4-H thrive in their community. And we know that there are two aspects to this: recruitment of new youth and retention of current participants. Today, we welcome 3 volunteers from associations across the province that have some of the highest retention rates pre- and post-pandemic times. I'm pleased to welcome Lesleigh Elgie from Brant, Brenda Bebbington from Peel, and Josie Leaman from Carleton. And just before we get started, I'd like to note that folks tuning in are welcome to ask questions in the comments on this video. We have the lovely Autumn here to help us manage the tech side of this and any questions that come through. And with that, let's dive in and start with some introductions. If each of you could tell us your name, where you're from, and a little bit about yourself.
Hi, I'm Leslie, and I'm from Brant County. I've been volunteering for almost 15 years. It's just about 13 years since I've graduated from the program. Absolutely love the program. I did lots of opportunities in clubs, was an ambassador in 2008, and I just can't say enough good things about 4-H.
Hi, my name is Brenda Bebbington. I'm from Peel 4-H. I lead some Life Scout clubs and Clover Buds, also a member of the board in Peel. I was never a 4-H for myself, but it was introduced to the program when a friend asked my child to join a beef club, and then we were hooked and continue to volunteer now today. They've long since graduated.
Josie Leaman from Carleton. My 4-H experience as a youth is somewhere between Leslie and Brenda. I was involved on and off through my youth years in dairy and the occasional life skills club. And I've been a leader now for, I think, about 8 years.
Wonderful. We are so glad to have you all joining us. So in the spirit of retaining youth, what do youth tell you that they enjoy most about 4-H, and what would you say keeps them coming back?
I think we have a lot that really appreciate the social aspect. There seem to be a big group of kids in our area that are fairly widespread geographically across the region, but really value their friendships with other 4-Hers.
I would agree with that in Peel, that I think it's a great, one joins and then they like to bring their friends along. They make new friends with the other opportunities, and then they're hooked as well.
Yeah, completely agree. And it's also, I've always looked at it, and I think a lot of the members in Brant look at it as, even just the clubs that they can do is just an opportunity in itself. Some things that they might never get to do if they weren't in 4-H. And I think that's a pretty valuable piece.
For sure. We hear about those connections all the time, and they really span a lifetime, which is really special about 4-H. When we think about clubs and kind of that atmosphere, how do you think that volunteers can help ensure that youth feel seen, valued, and heard?
I think it's communication is a big piece. It's, talking to your members and saying, what do you want? Well, how do you want to do this? And see, we have the requirements of, how a 4-H club is supposed to run, or, the hours and that, but, we can, I don't want to say make exceptions, but we can work with our youth to see, work on what they want to see within the club. And then giving them some leadership roles within the club.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think just listening to them, right? The same way you would listen to another leader with an idea, right? Let's try it, instead of, well, it's not the way we do it, or whatever. If you can make it work, I think it makes a huge impact on the way they feel about being part of the club.
Exactly. I totally agree. And when you're leading one club, you're kind of talking about if they have interests for, the next venture that they want to try, and you try to, so then they want to come back to the next club, and you try to work with their ideas that they have. You try to make the club fun. Like, it's still, we're learning, but they're still able to interact, play games, and it's a social time as well.
For sure. And when you think about it from, let's say, a decision-making process, or when things are going, if you solicit buy-in from folks, they're going to be more excited about the decision that's being made, and because they've been able to contribute to it. So the same, I think, goes for that and what you've all said. And it really comes back to engagement. And I think that's probably the biggest part of retention, is keeping those folks engaged. So again, to that point around engagement, what is one thing that your association does that you feel keeps youth engaged?
I think communication is the biggest piece of the puzzle. In Peel, we have a lot of families and youth that don't have a history with 4-H, so they don't always understand how it works and all of the opportunities that are available. So you need to be very transparent and share with them that there's just not clubs at a local level, that you can go to an opportunity, whether it's a camp, there's scholarships available. And then I think they can realize that they can grow with the program, that it's not just, they've started in Clover Buds, it's just not playing games, then you get to learn different skills. And there's so many other opportunities that open up to them as a member.
And I think, again, it comes down to communication, but it's also, what do you want? What kind of club do you want? Like, if you have the expertise in it, especially if they're at the youth leader age, then you can be like, okay, you can be a youth leader, sort of thing. You run the club, and we're just there to, be the requirements of like the two leaders and support you in this, next level. So if you can, or if you can help find some leaders, some guest speakers for that area, if they have a club idea, run with it with them.
Yeah. We try and do some things too that help, I guess, make it easy for them to participate. So, if you have to make 2/3 of meetings, like if we have kids who are away for a good chunk of the summer or whatever, right, we try and find alternate opportunities for them. Right. We require that they complete a judging night as part of their project, and we make sure that they know what the other judging nights around are, what other clubs are having meetings that would count as a makeup meeting for some of our clubs, just things that make it easy for them to participate.
Yeah, this is all great feedback. Thank you. I think the communication is huge, and meeting them where they are. I think that's really what you were getting at there too, Josie, that even especially when it comes to summer, we know that it's a busy time for everybody. So if it's a matter of moving meetings so that they're happening before the school year ends, or even just being cognizant of that, I think makes a huge difference in that engagement. And we kind of touched on this a little bit from the leadership aspect that you mentioned there, Lesleigh. So I think there's probably engagement on two sets here. So when we think about youth in that 6 to 14 age range versus youth in that 15 to 21 age range, how do you think that we can best keep those two groups engaged, and what strategies would you feel works best depending on the different age groups there?
I think it's difficult sometimes. Sometimes it is meaning to having to run two clubs, whether it's simultaneously, or maybe 1 year we're doing more of a junior club, and then the next year we're going to do more of a senior club, so that we can focus on their level versus, the younger ones, it's going to be above them, or the older ones, it's going to be below them. And sometimes you don't have the ability to break them up into the groups and be like, okay, the younger groups are going to do this, the older groups are going to do that. So it's working with what you have.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would say kind of the same for a lot of what we do for that. We try and give the older age group more teaching opportunities. Like, our CAF club in particular does a bring your CAF night, kind of right before our achievement day show. Everyone's welcome to bring their CAF. We go to the fair. We, set up a mock ring, and essentially we have, because my experience is not in beef, so I have some of the older members lead that. They act as the judge. They give the tips to the other kids, and it seems to really motivate them to share and to work well that way. And I think a lot of the younger kids, they just want to be part of a group, right? Lots of like group activities and fun and go and do something together for team building. And that seems to really get them happy to be there.
Yeah, I would say the same thing with focus on the mentoring, take advantage of the mentoring, breaking into small groups so that the ages are kind of shared with you, have that. And you have to be very conscious that you're not making the senior members feel like babysitters. You want them to be teaching and mentors. You don't want them to feel that they're responsible for looking after, per se, the younger members.
For sure, for sure. And I think this kind of leads to another piece here that we would hope to ask you about, was really just the youth leadership aspect of all, and what that might play in engaging those older youth. So, for example, we have the youth leader program. Lesleigh mentioned that they have many members or participants take part in. But even some of those other provincial opportunities and things like that, that really it takes the engagement to a whole other level and increases that connection. What has been your experience in seeing those participants in your areas take part in those leadership opportunities?
I think anybody that does take part of it, they have such a great experience from it, but sometimes they need the leaders to be able to encourage them because they might be nervous about it, and maybe they start off just taking more leadership roles in a club before they actually step off to be a youth leader or go to leadership camp. And at our awards night, we always ask members that have participated in some of these different opportunities to speak about it. So I think word of mouth, your peers have done it. I think that's the best encouragement to go and try it.
Yeah, I would say that, as well as, we do post their stories of when they come back, and, it's great to see them come back a whole different person, and more outgoing than they were when they left. Even if they were an outgoing person when they went off to the opportunity, it's just great to see that growth. Actually, I know this year we've had in a couple of clubs, we have a long-standing youth leader. She'll actually be in her last year this year. She's been starting to mentor the next youth leader and a couple of her clubs. So they've been able to both be youth leaders in the clubs because the club's been big enough, but she's kind of stepped back a little bit and more on the mentoring of the youth leader to pass that mentorship down. So it's been neat to see that.
That's cool. That is cool.
Very cool.
I don't have, I think, anything to add other than agreeing with those. We have, we try and have an opportunity for them to talk at the banquet, our awards banquet, as well, about experiences that way.
Yeah, this is awesome. And maybe we'll switch gears to kind of the flip side of this. So when we've got newer youth, and maybe these are typically our folks who could be that anywhere from that 6 to 14-year-old range, not that we don't have folks join when they're a little older, but part of that engagement is also inclusion. And what are your thoughts on what volunteers can do to make youth feel included right away when they do join 4-H for the first time?
Sharing the knowledge of what 4-H is about and what it means to be a part of this organization and be a part of the club, and listening to the needs of the child, whether that's coming from specifically the child or the member or the parents. I can remember this past summer with the horse club. It was a big club. It's hard to remember all the names in that, and there was one member that had some difficulties. And, the parent had shared with, she'd been around a lot of people already, so she probably was tactic sort of thing. And she really wasn't engaging. And she eventually came over to me and she would start to chat with me. Eventually, at first, it wasn't about, club stuff. Then I was able to get onto club material questions and chatting. And then we kind of would slowly just move around the arena. And she eventually would leave me. And she would join a little bit. She would still be near the back, but she was at least joining. She was taking those steps. And then when she was uncomfortable, she would step back and be more closer to me. So it's just, listening to your members and what their needs are, and doing what we can to support them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was going to say very much along the same lines. We try to be very good with names and welcoming them when they arrive, especially when you have members, it's the first time ever as being a Clover Bud leader, they're very nervous, but if you welcome them, and then we try to do lots of icebreaker type games that focus on everybody getting to know everybody's name, even if it's just simple as throwing a ball around, but everybody's kind of participating, and so that they feel part of the group.
Yeah, I agree. We always try and do something at our first meetings, for at least the clubs that I'm involved in, to get them paired up and learning things about each other. Even, this year we just did like a Jeopardy game, but they had to work together as a team, and we kind of manipulate it a little bit, that you pair them up with somebody that you think they're going to be similar enough with that they'll maybe come out of it with a buddy.
Games are always a great activity, whether it's, we just did Jeopardy at our last cooking meeting, but go for the gold games, bingo, they really jump in with all.
Yeah, something I found opposite of Josie is that we have a lot of members that know each other, and then when new members join, they stay in their, I don't want to call them cliques, but they stay in their groups. And so I know this last year we really tried to almost force them, like we wouldn't give the opportunity to create their groups themselves. We would, so we can mix it up, and we did see some mixing. It was hard, but yeah, sometimes you have to take on that leadership role as the leader and mix the group up so that you are mixing up people and they're not just all staying in the one group and there's this one person standing off to the side.
Yes, we do that as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I also find it's helpful to, like, if you've got groups like that know each other well, and you've got like one little newbie all by themselves, like, just to pretend that you've known them for forever, right? Treat them like you've known them forever, and it's like the party host game, right? Like, oh, Allie, you know so much about this topic. Like, my new friend Tanya would love to know some more about that. Can you tell her?
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
For sure. And I think there's always such a unique thing about 4-H, and as we've kind of talked about as well with that youth leader and that mentorship aspect, that, for example, even if you look at like our livestock clubs, you've maybe got a child who lives on a farm, and that everything related to that project is something that comes really natural to them, but there's really an opportunity there to then connect them and with maybe a new friend, and they learn alongside. And those connections just span for years and years to come, which is really cool. So when we think about, again, this kind of piece with retention, what would you say is the best way to respond if you notice that a youth seems to be losing interest in 4-H? How can we help them if that's something that they truly want to continue with, but still maybe there's something that's kind of stopping them there? What would you find is the best way to help them find that encouragement again?
I asked a bunch of the leaders in our county about this one. I wanted to get some extra feedback on this, and the interesting part that I thought came from that discussion was the tenure of leaders in the county and the creativity that comes from that. Right? If you as leaders do a good job of welcoming new leaders with new ideas and different clubs that they want to try, and right, you've always been a one life skills club, a calf club, and a field crops club, just opening that up from a leadership standpoint can really help give the kids a variety of opportunities, which seems to be the big piece that we see in our older members as they start to lose interest, is they want to learn something new, right? If they started at 9, by the time they hit 14, they've seen most of the farms in the county. They've had a showmanship demonstration. They've had a nutrition, a vet talk. So it seems to yeah, seems to be the best way we have to give them something that makes them excited about 4-H again.
Yes, I agree. It very much the same way. And it's like, ask the question as to, what they would like to see, why they're sometimes you have a member that might step away because they have a conflict with school or work and they just can't meet on a certain night. But I always ask, okay, did you want to stay on my email list, and then I can tell you about the next club that's coming up. And sometimes they might step away for a full year, but I've seen them then come back, that their schedule's realigned and they're able to come back again. That you just need to find out why they're leaving and try to help them.
Yeah. I would say much the same as Brenda. For us here would be, just asking them why and if there's anything we can do. And sometimes there is and sometimes we can't. And yet, they do have to step back for maybe a year or, not do as many clubs, and then they come back and you definitely see that difference. When they come back, they're more fueled for the 4-H, and that's nice to see. It's a tricky one, I think, to deal with, but it comes down to communication and asking, what's your why and what can we do, and seeing whether there is something that we can do, especially if it's common through more than just one member sort of thing.
Yeah, and that's an interesting point. I think that's actually something that came through when we had this discussion regarding recruitment and kind of getting new people in the door, is that variety piece. So on the flip side here, you might see it that people have kind of, if you continue to offer the same clubs year over year without any variety in that sense, that they might feel that they've seen it all and there might not be new opportunities to learn. And on the recruitment end, the more variety there is and more things there are to learn, the more likely they are to start and get their foot in the door with 4-H. So I think that's a really important piece that's come through both of these, which I think will be really valuable for associations to continue moving forward. So with that, I'll kind of leave with one last final thought from you all. What advice would you have for associations who are looking to increase youth retention as a whole? What would be like that one big thing that you would share?
I would say asking them, ask the members what they want to learn, what they want to see, what they want to do. Let them take over half the planning for your meetings that way. It's if they feel in control, they seem to stick around, in our experience.
Yes, I would say listen to the youth and just communicate so that the youth and their families know what the expectations are, what's available, and that seems to keep them engaged.
Yeah, completely agree. And, tell them to share with their friends, and, have something that you can bring out a friend too, that, you might get to, get that increase, because you just never know. If there's, community things that you can go to or community achievements that you can be seen, that word of mouth is a huge aspect, but listening to what we have can only help us grow.
I was going to say just one other piece too that maybe is with the older members. As never being a 4-H member myself, but both of my children were, and I never hesitate to share that they both achieved their long-term employment goals because of 4-H on their resume. So always make sure you add that. It gave them great skills to develop, whether it be public speaking, critical thinking. They had scholarship opportunities, and I think that those are skills that you don't necessarily see when you're taking a club and having fun with your friends, but they will serve you greatly as you age. And parents are very enthusiastic about those skills that they don't always think about either, especially if they have no 4-H background.
For sure. It's those, I think, and not having been a past participant myself either, but having listened to the stories for so many years, I think it's easy to see when they're in the thick of it, those kind of hard skills that you might learn. So like how to lead a calf. those sorts of pieces, but it's those soft skills that you mentioned there, Brenda, that I think can often be the most impactful, and you take them anywhere you are in life, and being able to share that with folks and having them see what that possibility is and what they're really learning through 4-H. Not that it isn't just those hard skills, but the really lifelong impact of it is mind-blowing. And we actually did have a comment here from Patricia, and she mentioned similarly too that during their awards night, we asked that what clubs the youth want or are interested in participating in. Then our leaders have a meeting to discuss the possibilities of offering those clubs new to our region, which is great. Very on what you folks mentioned as well. Just, you don't know until you ask. And again, keeping them involved in those decisions it's so imperative to keeping them engaged in the program. They feel like they're part of that planning. And even, I think it was Josie, you mentioned, if they help you plan the meetings, then it's great for everyone.
I know originally Brant was scared to ask that, like to ask members what they want, because they feel as though that was a promise to them that they were going to get those clubs. And so I think it comes down to communications. We would like to see what you can, or what you'd like to do, but we can't necessarily promise that we're going to get this, but we will try our best. Or if you know somebody, let us know, reach out, and we can help them with like the volunteer process, or they just come as guest speakers, and we have other leaders that might be willing to support it. But yeah, I know originally Brant was scared to ask it, but now we definitely have asked it, and we've definitely had new clubs come out of it, and it's been great.
And you might get new leaders
Exactly.
with doing that as well, because if they're very keen about it, and maybe mom or dad or an aunt or an uncle or a neighbor, that you can, ask them to come and be your expert, or maybe eventually even become a volunteer and share their skills.
For sure. So with that, I think we're going to wrap up. Thank you all so much for taking the time to share your knowledge with us. It's been an absolute pleasure and we all appreciate your feedback. If anyone has any questions further, please go ahead and drop them in the comments. Otherwise, hope you have a great rest of your day, and thank you for joining.
Thank you.